Howdy ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk. Today's topic, the 2024-2025 NHL season has come to an end, and the Florida Panthers are the retaining Stanley Cup champions. They won last year, and they just won again. Let's be honest, right off the bat. Last year, the Oilers put up a valiant effort, and they just fell a little short. This year, they didn't deserve to win. They played like absolute crap in the final series. But before I get to that, I want to address another issue. I have been seeing this spammed online in Facebook, Twitter, and honestly, I'm so bored of this. I really am. So the Toronto Maple Laffs took the Florida Panthers to 7 games in round 2. Okay, great. They, in typical Leaf fashion, they had the momentum, they had the drive, they had Florida on the ropes, and Florida played like crap in that second round. And the Leafs collapsed, and Florida steamrolled them and won in 7 games. If Leafs had played any other team in the second round of the playoffs, they would have been out in 4 to 5 games. Like, make no mistake about it. Because Florida played that bad in round 2. Unfortunately for the Oilers played that bad in round 4. But the Laff fans out there, now I want to be clear here. When I say Laff fans, I'm talking about that very, very, very vocal, obnoxious group of fans that everybody hates. Like, there is a reason the Toronto Maple Leafs fan section is the most hated in pro sports in North America. Nobody else compares. Nobody respects these people. Now, you have good Leaf fans who are knowledgeable. They don't talk shit. They don't make an ass out of themselves. And then you have Laff fans, and they're freaking idiots. They really are. So these Laff fans have decided now, because Florida, who was playing like crap, needed 7 games to beat the Leafs in the second round. That means the Leafs are now the second best team in the NHL this year. I'm not joking. They're really trying to push this. I've lost count how many times I've read this. Like, they don't seem to understand. Second round, fourth round. And they completely refuse to accept that Florida played like absolute crap against them and still won. Because the Leafs did what they always do. They collapse in the playoffs. They're not a playoff team. They're not designed to be a playoff team. They are designed to be a regular season team. And in the fourth round, that's kind of what undid the Oilers, is they started playing or making the same mistakes that they were making during the regular season. They wanted to play shinny. They didn't want to play hockey. And you can't beat a team like Florida trying to play shinny. You have to get down and dirty into the muck with them. So anyway, I wanted to address that little issue because Leaf fans don't bother me. Laff fans, they drive me absolutely insane. I really don't think there's a stupider fan base than the Laff fans. Maybe Vancouver fans when they were in their cup runs, because they were equally obnoxious and just nobody. And they were voted the most hated franchise in the NHL for a few years running there. So, but they're no longer in the playoffs. They're no longer the powerhouse that they were with the Sedins. And, they still got their obnoxious fans. That's never going to change. But for the most part, they've calmed down. Laff fans, they never calm down. It's just stupidity after stupidity after stupidity. So anyway, I wanted to address that right up front. So before I get into the dissecting what went on with the Oilers, here's a quick little message for you. Hey all, just a quick mention here. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment on the videos you like. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, which helps me. Takes 2 seconds. So thanks in advance. All right, let's dissect. In my opinion, I want to be clear. This is my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I think I'm right, but I'm not saying I'm right. This is my opinion. The number one reason that we lost in these playoffs is Evan Bouchard. Now, I know Bob Stauffer's head just exploded. Like his man crush or boy crush or whatever the hell is going on between those two is like, he's probably losing his freaking mind if he hears this. But Evan Bouchard was an absolute disaster, and it wasn't all his fault. That's the strange thing about this. And I will get to that. But Bouchard in this final series, he was a turnover machine. He wasn't at all interested in playing defensive hockey. Not at all. If you go back and watch it, for some godforsaken reason that I'll never understand, he was put on the PK and he just stands there. He looked like Mark Carney. Yeah, he just stood there. He didn't move anyone out of the net. He didn't block shots. He just stood there and we'd get scored on. Personally, I blame Bouchard for 2 games. If Bouchard had not been put on the ice, I don't think those goals would have gone in, and I think those 2 games would have ended differently, which would have changed the entire series. Now, that's not to say Oilers deserved to win. They didn't. The whole team played like crap. The Oilers were the more skilled team. There's no denying that. The Panthers had more heart and more desire, and there's no denying that. They wanted to win, and in this series, heart and desire really outdid just basic skill. But that brings us back to the Oilers wanted to play Shinny. And we've seen this for the last 3 years. They do this. They get these little spurts where they only want to play Shinny. And that's when they go on their losing streaks. And for some godforsaken reason, their coaches, their players, they can't seem to figure this out. Stop playing Shinny. You have to play hockey. You have to play 3 periods of hockey. Not 1, not 1.5, not 2. 3 periods of hockey. And that seems to be the biggest Achilles heel that this team faces, is they are not prepared to do that and they don't want to do that. And as a fan, that drives me absolutely mental. I was talking to my pharmacist and he was saying, if they played well and lost, I wouldn't mind this at all. And, I would be praising them from the mountaintops. And I agree. But they didn't play well. They tried to play Shinny hockey. Non-contact for the most part. Wave your stick, avoid body check. It was ridiculous. I mean, the player I noticed the most was the player that Knoblauch put in his doghouse for the entire season, which I also don't understand, is Jeff Skinner. Jeff Skinner at least had energy out there. He was trying to make things happen. Unfortunately, he was doing it by himself for the most part, because as big a fan as I was of Adam Henrique, he did not have a good playoffs. And I'm not sure what his contract is if he's coming back next year, but I don't think he can be on the 3rd line anymore. I really don't. I think you have to move him to the 4th line center position. I think he's slowed down too much. And it's not disparaging at Adam Henrique. I love Adam Henrique. When Taylor Hall was traded, I hated that trade. I absolutely hated that trade. And I still hate that trade to this day. But I said back then, I could see Hall for Larson and Henrique. That would have been a fair trade. Or Larson and a 1st-round pick. That would have been a fair trade. Hall for Larson, that was an absolutely idiotic trade, and Chiarelli absolutely deserved to be fired over it. And Hall went on to win the scoring title the next year, proving that at that moment in time, he was that much better of a player. And that when you make a trade, that's what it is. It's what that moment in time. So it should have been, in my opinion, Larson and Henrique. And I would have been thrilled to get Henrique back then. Like, make no mistake, Adam Henrique was a superstar in this league. Unfortunately, age catches up to all of us. I mean, I'm 59 years old. God, do I know age catches up to us. So Henrique's really lost a step, and I don't think he can be on the 3rd line anymore. So that's one of the things the management's going to have to address in the off season, is we need a 3rd line center. I don't know if Noah Phillips is ready for that responsibility. So they may have to go into the free agent market and find somebody for the 3rd line center. So the other thing I noticed, and this has been driving me nuts for a few years as well. And again, go back and look. Like, all of this is very obvious. Goalies nowadays are trained to play off their knees. They go down very quickly. They go down very early. And they're trained to smother the bottom of the net. And in my opinion, there is no goalie in the league better at that than Bobrovsky, which means you have to shoot high on him. Bobrovsky let in 1 goal at ice level this last series, 6 games. 1 goal. Every other goal was shot high. Yet for game 5 and game 6, I don't know the exact stats. I haven't looked at the shots. I hate analytics, so I'm not going to look that shit up. But I would be surprised, very surprised, if I'll say 90% of the shots were not at the bottom 25% of his net, leaving only 10% of our shots going to the top where we scored most of our goals. And yet in games 5 and 6, the Oilers went back to refusing to shoot high. Bouchard, I understand the forwards. They're in the muck and the grind. There's sticks in the way. There's checks happening. You don't always have the time to pick the corner. That makes perfect sense, But Bouchard has the time from the blue line, and yet his shots are always like this high off the ground. They were all easy stops. Go watch game 6. Bobrovsky just put his pad down, bump, and gone. Some people will say, oh, well, he's going for deflection. There was nobody in front of the frickin' net. There was no deflection to be had. Bouchard had the shot. It was on him to shoot high with his shot. We keep hearing Bob Stauffer go on and on and on. We keep hearing Bob Stauffer go on and on. Oh, Bouchard has this deadly accurate shot. He can place the puck wherever he wants. Well, okay, Bob, I'm going to take you at your word. Why is he not placing it at the top, even the top half of the net? Ideally, we would want him in the top 25% of the net, but even at the top half of the net, why is he not shooting high? I would love an answer to that. I really would. Because I was going hoarse screaming at the TV the last 2 games because Bouchard was just, I'm going to shoot low. I'm going to shoot low. Oh, I'm going to go for a skate. Oh, I turned over the puck. Oh, they scored. Oh, well. Shucks dang. Oh, coach, put me in. I want more ice time. I'm not doing anything out there, but I want more ice time. Yeah, I don't like Evan Bouchard. I've never liked Evan Bouchard. And truth be told, if somebody is stupid enough to offer him $10 million plus on an offer sheet, let him walk. Take the compensation, because we are never, ever going to get that return in a trade for him. And if we sign him for $10 plus million to a long-term contract, Oilers are never going to win the cup. Evan Bouchard, to me, is our Austin Matthews. You cannot win with him. Oh, sure, he pads his points just like Austin Matthews does. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, he disappears. And that's what he did this playoffs. He absolutely disappeared. That was one of the most shameful displays I've ever seen of somebody who's supposed to be a top 2 defenseman. Now, I personally don't think he is a top 4 defenseman. I think we should be playing Evan Bouchard like we played Tyson Barrie. Third line, limited 5-on-5 minutes, power play specialist. If we get lots of power plays, Evan gets lots of ice time. If we don't get lots of power plays, Evan only gets 5 to 7 minutes a game 5-on-5 because he's not good defensively. Okay, so I'm going to get off that one because it just angers me. Which brings us to Knoblauch. Now, I like Knoblauch as a coach overall. I really do. But there's one thing I didn't like and I don't like, and I think he needs to answer for it, is what the hell was he thinking putting Evan Bouchard on the penalty kill? Or when we were protecting a lead and the other team pulled their goalie and had 6 skaters, why is Bouchard out there? He has no interest in playing defense. And that's when we lost. That's when we lost games, is when Evan Bouchard was on the penalty kill or one of the 5 players on a 6-on-5, because he just stands there. He doesn't clear out the front of the net. He doesn't go against the boards hard. All he does is stand there, and if the puck comes to him, he tries to clear it, which this series he really wasn't able to do. I like in game 6, I mostly tuned out in the last half of the game. I knew it was over. I think any Oiler fan knew it was over. We were hopeful for the miraculous comeback, so I had the game playing, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I counted 5 or 6 unacceptable turnovers by Bouchard in the first half of the game. So I don't know what he did in the back half, but I guarantee you he didn't suddenly become defensively astute. So why was Knoblauch putting him out there in those positions? The Oilers did not play well, but I think that actually lost us the series. Him and Bouchard. The only thing I can think of is when Craig McTavish, we needed a tie to make the playoffs, but McTavish wanted to win, so he pulled our goalie when the score was tied. I think it was Vancouver, but it might have been Calgary. I forget who now. It was years ago. Scored, and we missed the playoffs. That was completely on McTavish. That's what I compare to putting Bouchard on the penalty kill. Bouchard should never, ever, ever see the ice when defense is required. Yeah, he's got the big shot, but that's all he's got. He doesn't see the ice well. I went hoarse that one game. I think it was game 5. And this was on our entire defense. They seemed completely incapable of stopping the puck in the offensive zone on the blue line, our defense. Florida would get the puck and out it went. And our defense seemed completely incapable of stopping the puck and holding the zone. Whereas Florida, as soon as they got in our zone, we try to clear it. No, their defense were all over that. They were again, heart and desire. Florida wanted it more. It really does come down to that. So I'm going to talk about a couple other things first. I am so sick of hearing about the Nurse hate. I really am. Nurse is not why we lost. He's like everybody else. Our whole team played like crap this series, so I'm not giving him a pass on that. He could have been better, but he's not why we lost. So just stop. Yeah, I get it. You guys hate the contract. Well, you're about to hate, if Bouchard gets his contract, you're about to hate a contract way, way more, because Darnell Nurse is a better defenseman than Evan Bouchard is. And Darnell Nurse makes 9.25. Evan Bouchard wants 11 or 12 million. Personally, I still think we should be using Darnell on the power play once in a while. The first unit power play, not the second. Knoblauch doesn't seem to like him and pulls him off the power play. And I saw him putting out Exholm, who's beyond injured, which, again, I don't get it. It's like, why are you stressing out Exholm when you know he's playing in a diminished capacity? But, Knoblauch's putting Exholm out there. He's putting everybody but Darnell out there on the power play. And honestly, it pisses me off, So that gets us to the goalies. I don't blame this loss on Skinner or Pickard at all. I know the no minds out there like to think it's all about the goalie. But we saw, if the team plays well in front of our goalies, they're good enough to win. And it's that simple. It comes down to the team. It's not about the goalies. Skinner and Pickard are not starting goalies. They never have been. They are above average goalies, which in this league typically makes you a backup. That's what they are. And I'm not trying to be mean to Skinner or Pickard. I think both of them had stretches where they played absolutely fantastic this playoffs, but they cannot win you games. And if you're expecting them to win you games, you're a fool. They're not paid to do that, first off. Like everybody, we need a starting goal. Hey, well, we paid Pickard what, or we paid Skinner what? I think it was under 3 this season, 3 million. You want a starting goaltender, you're looking at 8 to 10 million. We didn't have the cap space for that. We had the cap space for Skinner and Pickard, and that's what we had. And again, they did not lose the series for us. They didn't win the series for us, but they didn't lose the series for us. The team in front of them lost the series because the team played like crap. After game 2, it was all downhill. We did not deserve to win a second game. Now, you can argue that we should have won the second game. I'll agree with you fully. I thought Edmonton was the better team in that game. For the first 2 games, Edmonton was the better team. But Florida got the split, and then we went to Florida, and we really didn't deserve the split in Florida, but we got a little bounce our way, and that was that one goal on ice level by Leon, and hey, great. But other than that, it's like we played like absolute crap after the second game. Again, came down to heart and desire. We just didn't have it this year. We did not have the desire, I don't know why that is. Like, I don't understand how you can make so much money playing a game and not be emotionally invested all the time. Like, It baffles me. It really does. Like I've worked jobs where, I made decent money, but nothing like these guys. And they weren't my dream jobs. I wanted to be a professional wrestler, for crying out loud. That was my dream job. But what I ended up doing, they weren't my dream jobs, but I still went in every day to do the absolute best job I could do. It's just self-respect. And I think that's what we're missing in that room. The other thing I think in that room is, now I love Connor McDavid and I love Leon Draisaitl, but there's one thing I think they are a detriment to us on. Leon and Connor can do things that no other player can do. So they try these things, and all the power to them, because they can do it. So absolutely go to town, show us what you got. But the rest of the team, they can't do what Connor and Leon do. Yet you see players constantly trying to do it. And I think that's part of our problem is under Leon and Connor, we got a bunch of players that are trying to be Leon and Connor rather than being like, no, that's not fair. I should remove Kane, I should remove Nurse, and I should remove Hyman. Those guys play their roles. They play their game. But everybody else always struck me as they're trying to be Connor and Leon, but they don't have the skill to be Connor and Leon. We need players that are going to fill the roles we are weak in. We don't need another Connor McDavid. We don't need another Leon Draisaitl, especially if you don't have the skill set to pull it off. We need checkers. We need grinders. We need physical players. We need emotional players. Like an average ability player can rise so much higher if they are emotional. Look at Corey Perry. Like Corey Perry has no business being as good as he is right now, but he's got the drive. He's got the emotion. He just, unfortunately at his age, he can't do it every day. And I think we saw that in the final series is Perry was starting to slide off, and at his age, that's to be expected. Exholm, he was injured. It was so obvious he was injured. I don't understand why Knoblauch kept pushing him. Personally, I would have sat him out of Game 5. After Game 4, I would have said, nope, you're sitting down for a game. Rest up, and then we'll use you in the next game. Because you could see him slowing down and struggling. Instead, Knoblauch just kept putting him out there. And he just got slower and slower and slower. Like, I expect the injury to be quite severe for Exholm once it becomes common knowledge, like it was for Nick Kane. We had no clue how badly he was hurt last year, and I think that's what's going on with Exholm. In a nutshell, the team's just not designed properly right now. We got some pieces, like I love Fredericks, another injured player. He was not at 100%. I want to see what he can do next year at 100% because he is that grinder, physical presence. Like a healthy Fredericks could replace Kane. That's the other thing we got to talk about. I love Evander Kane. I've been aboard the Evander Kane hype train since he got signed in the Oilers. I didn't give a shit what his ex-wife said, and all the nonsense that people were throwing at him. I didn't care. I wanted Evander Kane, the hockey player. I'd followed him since junior, so I knew exactly who he was as a hockey player. But unfortunately, what we saw in this series is he's a marked man now. He can't even take a breath without getting a penalty now. And as much as I love Evander Kane, that doesn't help the team. So it may be time for the Oilers to walk away from Evander Kane. And that sucks, because again, I love what Evander Kane brings to our team. But you compare him to Bennett. Bennett was far dirtier than Evander Kane was. Bennett, what do you get? 2 penalties all playoffs? Like the refs were not calling him. Evander goes out there, looks cross-eyed, and he's in the box. It's not Evander's fault, but unfortunately that as a franchise, we can't carry that. We need physical players who can actually be out there playing, not sitting in the penalty box for imaginary slights. And again, that's not fair to Evander. It really isn't. But that is the reality of the situation. So the last thing I want to talk about is the NHL has a problem, and his name is Wes McCauley. He is every single time, regular season or playoffs, I see Wes McCauley as a referee for an Oiler game, I know we are getting screwed. and we got screwed big time. Now, I'm not saying we would have won because, again, we played like shit. But what happened with Wes McCauley officiating, that was a frickin' embarrassment to the league. There's no other way to put it. And I don't understand how he got a second Stanley Cup final game after his first display, because that was an absolute travesty. An absolute travesty. You know, again, I'm not saying we would have won the series because, again, the team played like crap. The Florida Panthers played like crap in the second round, but they had an easy out in Toronto. So it went 7 games because they played like crap, but they got past them. We played like crap in the fourth round. Unfortunately, we didn't have an easy out, and we lost because of it. You know, I think every team has a series where they play like crap. You just hope it's like Florida. You're playing a weak opponent when that hits. I don't think Toronto would have, if Toronto was in the Western Conference, I don't think they got out of the first round because we did not have an Ottawa or a Montreal for them to play. They would have been brutalized in the Western Conference, but they got an easy bye basically in the first round to the second round. And then Florida played like crap so they got to go to game 7, but then Florida won. The better team won, even though it was playing like crap. The Oilers, unfortunately, they played like crap in the fourth round. The worst time to play like crap. So I don't know if we would have won with better officiating, but I do know that what was going on that ice with those officials should never happen in an NHL game. For any team, not just the Oilers, for any team. What happened in this series with Wes McCauley and the other officials should never happen in an NHL Stanley Cup final. It really shouldn't. Anyway, that's my recap of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers. They made it to the Stanley Cup finals, and as an Oiler fan, I'm very proud of that. But then they collapsed. I don't think they're strong enough mentally to handle the pressure. I really don't. I think we need to get rid of a number of players. Like Arvidsson did nothing. Kapanen, as a fourth liner, I could see keeping him. Janmark, again, fourth liner. But I mean, how many fourth liners can we load up with? You know, I don't think Stetcher is an NHL defenseman. I don't want Bouchard on the team next year. I really don't. I don't think Kane should be here because he's a marked man by the officials, and that just hurts the team. I hate saying that because I really do like Evander Kane, the player, and I want him on our team. But you can't, that's a battle you can't win. We've seen it before. So anyway, and we're probably going to have to upgrade our goaltending, but I don't think we need to go to the superstar goaltender. I think our biggest problem is the team in front of our goaltenders, but we could use a little bump up. You know, I'm sick to death of the first shot of a game going in. I really am. Now, I didn't blame it on Skinner in this last game. That was completely on Bouchard. That goal was completely on Evan Bouchard. And it's not the first time he's done that to our goalies. But at the same time, it's like, can we get 10 or 12 stops before the first goal goes in for a change? That drives me nuts. So anyway, that's my recap. If you like my video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. Trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders. And I do appreciate anyone that does like, subscribe, and share. Always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage you to leave a comment. Let's get a discussion happening. And also leaving a comment helps me with the YouTube algorithm, getting my video out to more eyes. It's a selfish ask, but it's an ask all the same. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Bye.